Fit for Life Radio, episode 119. Will and Gary.
William.
Will I, Gary am. We are coming at you today talking about do
your jeans
make you fat? Make me fat. Do my jeans make me fat? Are they skinny jeans? Are they boot cut jeans?
Boot cuts?
Boot cut mom jeans?
You want to hear a story? We had a funeral to go to this weekend, so I was like, I got to get, I want to look nice. And my suit is at the tailor right now, so I was like, I can't wear my suit. It's being tailored. It's being brought in.
How often you wear your suit,
I
man?
know, right?
Why are you getting your suit tailored the one time a year you need
we
it?
have a wedding coming up.
Oh,
and
look at you.
So like it's there, and I was like, man, now I can't wear my suit. And I don't really, I coach for a living. I don't really have a lot of dress-up clothes. So I was going to just wear like khakis and a nice shirt, like nothing crazy. Did I go to put on my khaki pants? Couldn't even button them. But since I bought them and I wore them, I've gained like 12 pounds on purpose. Like, it's just where I'm at. But man, I put them on and they were tight.
You need those drawstring khakis.
Bro, I do. And Whitney was like, what? Why don't we try to put like a hair tie around your button so that you can get it closed? And I was like, man. And then it just ended up, she was like, you can't wear those. You can't do it. Like, those are 28s. Like, that's at my, smallest. Yeah. Like, I got this little boy hips, But anyways, so those, yeah, it was rough.
Those easy pants, man, with the drawstrings.
Drawstrings where it's at, man. Now I get it.
Well, we're not talking about JEANS jeans. We're talking about GENES jeans. And really, obviously, it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
But we're actually, Precision Nutrition had a research review in their PN Academy.
Super interesting.
Yeah, really, really interesting. So we're just going to go over that, kind of talk about it, some things we noticed of working with people, ties in, and takeaways, right?
And we've kind of had these theories, and we had no idea really what it was. And we've talked about it, like, over the years. We just see people and notice that, like, there's almost just two types of people.
Mm-hmm. And this... So study actually is from 2001 where they identified two phenotypes. One is called a thrifty phenotype, which means their metabolism is wired to store more energy when they overeat and burn less of it when they stop eating. The opposite, that's someone who you would experience, you gain weight easier, right?
And
it's harder to lose weight.
Yeah.
So super simple. Then the opposite of that is the spendthrift phenotype, which is someone who their metabolism speeds up when you take in too many calories, thus limiting weight gain. And it doesn't slow down very much when you cut back, making it easier to get lean and stay lean.
Yeah, so
a good example is I am definitely, just from doing this and knowing, a spendthrift phenotype. And we'll get into some other reasons that make it obvious. They actually eventually get into some study on intermittent fasting, and it parallels the spendthrift phenotype experience with that, parallels from the studies that they did, parallels me personally from what I know about myself, which I found interesting. And so, yes, and we've always told people this and been fully transparent of you have these things, and for some people, some things are harder, some things aren't. And you have to accept that, but then realize that there's still principles that are in place, and that's just the way it is. Our genetics dictate so much, and if you dwell on what you can't control, you're doomed, right? And that's for anything, right? Like, why am I losing my hair, right?
Yeah.
I could be super sad about it all the time, but it's a genetic thing, right?
You're not getting it back.
Exactly. So let me focus on things I can control. And you just I mean, and obviously there are some people who hit genetic jackpot, right? Which is the problem with social media nowadays. Those are the 1% you're going to see on your Instagram.
And the ones that rise to the top.
Yeah, the ones who naturally gain muscle easy, but burn fat easy, keep all their hair, have perfect teeth.
Have great beards. Yeah. Like, I just have everything.
And, you know, in the world, and with women, it's been like this for even longer, right? Because, you know, beauty and standards and all that have been around in magazines and pushed more on women than even men. And so, yeah, that's what I want to preface this with saying is you want to kind of, man, like this is going to be a little harder for me, but then that's no reason maybe not to try or not to do certain things.
It just gives you a little bit of knowledge that, like, this is, you know, most likely the way that I operate. And you can use that just as data to know what, you know, it's going to take to change, or just how your body behaves.
Yeah. So we know, again, so we've established in this research from before, seems to be 2 phenotypes. So 2 types of people, thrifty and spendthrift. Now, to me, those are a little confusing. You might get them confused. So what do you say we want to call them going forward, Will? Let's do the slow metabolism
and the fast metabolism.
The slow phenotype and the fast phenotype.
Yeah, that would be a fine way to do it, because then that makes a lot of sense.
Because when we read through this, I would have to like second guess like which, because
they both have the word thrift in them.
Yeah. So going forward, the thrifty phenotype is going to be slow, and the spendthrift is going to be fast.
Yeah.
All right. So now with these experiments, they both involved kind of energy imbalances, right? So what they did was they overfed the participants for 48 hours, giving them twice as much food as they needed to maintain their current weight. It then compared those results to the same participants going 48 hours with no food at all. And then
so
see what would happen.
Fast.
And what would happen was kind of what they thought. People with either phenotype would kind of burn, or their metabolism would adjust accordingly, right? So the people with the slow metabolism would not burn, you know, when they're increased, when they were fed more food, they would basically store fat. Their metabolism would not increase much, and they would just basically, hey, let's store this extra calories as body fat easier, right? Whereas a lot of the fast metabolism people will it was maybe speed up their metabolism.
It ramps up and
their body's like, let me kind of burn this, right? And vice versa. Then when they weren't fed, the slow metabolism would not make a ton bigger adjustment. It would take, well, this was no food too for 48 hours, and it would just kind of be a slight change. Whereas the fast metabolism, let's go ahead and start burning our stored energy.
Yep.
And you can also see it as, this was where I would see it based on people's personality type. Typically, people who have a fast metabolism are more stress, fight, or flight type.
Yes. More anxious.
Yeah, when they can go all day without eating, and they're just like, 'cause when they're stressed, they'll just forget about food. And whereas the slow metabolism people typically will stress eat, and it's just 2 different personality types. So the thing that they did not expect and wanted to see was, so the prevailing belief was that people with either phenotype burned about the same number of calories they wanted to see how it happens when they were at maintenance.
Yeah,
right?
Just what it takes to stay where you're at.
So not when they were being overfed doubly or not eating at all. Let's see what happens with that. So the scientists recruited 108 healthy volunteers for a experiment where for 24 hours, the participants lived inside a respiratory chamber where they were fed 3 meals designed to keep them in energy balance. In a respiratory chamber, that's super healthy. It means it's pretty accurate, because that's how we can actually accurately tell how many calories we're burning because it's through our oxygen, heart rate, things like that.
Yeah, that's like the best way that you can do something like this.
Then for another 24 hours, they lived inside the chamber while fasting. So 24 hours basically being fed exactly what they needed to maintain their weight, and then another 24 hours without eating. So fasting, obviously that's a deficit. They drew blood from the participants before and after so that they could assess hormone levels. What happened was during the 24-hour fasting period, those that were identified with a slow phenotype had a much steeper drop in energy expenditure, meaning you naturally don't move as much.
Yeah, so they slowed down.
They slowed down. Their energy expenditure declined 11%, while the opposite, so the fast phenotype, had just a 4% decrease. So they don't slow down as much. And that, is obviously helpful if you're trying to lose weight. You're keeping your activity, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity stays a little higher. And we talk about this all the time, how NEAT is actually more impactful than exercise, our exercise activity. And you see, so that could be one reason. How come this person loses weight easier? That phenotype, well, they naturally don't drop their NEAT as much.
Yeah, they move more even when they're not eating quite as much.
And that was kind of what they would expect, right? Okay, well, this group who actually struggles to lose weight more, their non-exercise activity dips down significantly more. Mm-hmm. Now, what they did not expect was the two groups burned calories at about the same rate while fasting. So even though the slow phenotype had less
they did less
movement and activity, they still burned the same amount of calories as the fast group. Why would that be? There is a big disparity in the two groups in their metabolic rates when they were adequately fed. The slow group burned 124 calories a day more than the fast group when they were in energy balance. So when they were eating to maintain their energy, actually the slower metabolism group burned
a little bit more
calories. So they had a higher ceiling, a higher baseline, which could explain why they ended up not burning as much when they were fasting. So it could actually, it all washes out because they were burning more when they were eating the appropriate amount.
Yeah.
So then the follow-up question that Precision Nutrition talks about is, why did the fast group have a smaller decline in energy expenditure while fasting? So this is where it gets real interesting and connects a lot of things we've seen. And so me talking as a fast
and with ourselves
phenotype, so that reason could be hormone levels. Ultimately, the fast metabolism group, their adrenaline increased 4.3 times as much as the slow group during the 24-hour fast. And this directly, again, like I said, for me, makes a strong connection. I never have had a great experience with fasting because I get very jittery and stressed out, and this literally shows what's happening is, this type of person, when you're wired this way, this phenotype, you're literally, quadruple.
Getting a huge shot of adrenaline.
Yeah, 4 times as much adrenaline when fasting, right?
Which gets your heart rate up and your blood pressure, and that's why you would get the jitters.
Yep. And then, prevents you. And so, you're jittering more. Like Will said, this also opens your airways, blood vessels, take in more oxygen, all these things that lead to hey, let me go do something, right? Fight or flight. And from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense that you would get a dose of adrenaline when you're out of food, so it kind of motivates you to have more alertness and readiness.
So you can get the food.
Yeah, to let me go find something to eat. Now, on that same token, it also makes sense that some people would be the slow group, right, to downshift metabolically, preserving your resources for what could be, maybe food's not coming for a while, right? Because, say there's advantage to both, right? So the fast metabolism person, oh my gosh, I'm fasting, let me go find food. And then maybe you do actually find food, and that's good. But if you don't, you're actually moving yourself closer to starving, right? So they talk about, speculating in here. So obviously, like, we evolved.
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late. So having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's 1 scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/provengrit. That's drinkag1.com/provengrit. Check it out.
To have both those phenotypes.
Because they are important.
And when you think about it, so in a group, it would be useful to have both types of people.
Yeah.
From a survival standpoint, right? And in reality, that's kind of where we're at now. And that's okay. Yeah, there is 2 types of people like that, it seems. And evolutionarily, that makes sense, right? Now, and then here's the other thing, right? Which they don't talk about, but this is us connecting the dots. In today's environment now, that made sense back in the day when food was scarce and we didn't know when our next meal could be.
But now it's not scarce.
Now it's not scarce.
It's freaking everywhere.
Yes. And so then you look at how it's laid out. Who does that favor? It definitely favors the fast metabolism, because most of us are fortunate enough to be in an environment of surplus and extra. Well, then the group who doesn't store as much and is more likely to increase energy expenditure with an increase in food.
It's a lot easier for you.
It's going to be easier and benefit, right? So, and then also in literally being in a fasted state is more stressful for them.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have all this availability, which favors how, you're going to feel normal. You're not going to feel jittery or have that adrenaline. And you can just really get away with eating more with no real detriment to it.
So then you start to see where if you are a slow metabolism phenotype, intermittent fasting might be a more helpful strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're not as affected as the fast burner is, or the fast metabolism person is by fasting. And it's actually probably going to help you. And what we find a lot with intermittent fasting, it can be a useful way to just drop calories in general. So, dropping that time that you're going to eat food, or we'll talk about the availability of your food, is probably a good idea.
And then you also see double whammy of, so the strategy that works best for your phenotype, or possibly, is harder to execute. And again, this surplus, abundant world, food is love, all this stuff. When in reality, hey, going longer periods of time, and this our baseline strategy for a lot of people is just eat 3 meals and skip the snacking. So that's also kind of a form of intermittent fasting, because you're going longer between meals without eating.
Yep.
It's harder because everywhere you go, there's snacks and this and that. And you have those friends who you're they snack all day long and never gain weight.
Well,
they're probably the fast phenotype, and if they do overconsume, they're more likely to increase their metabolism. And that's just the way it is, right?
There's nothing you can do to just change your genetics. So,
and then one thing from the studies. So yeah, so that again, hormones, fasting, adrenaline, gets them ramped up. Now, something that was harder to explain from the studies was the fast and slow alike, when they decreased their energy expenditure during the 24-hour fast and did so in a way that was uniform and predictable for their phenotype. Hold on, I'm misreading that. Okay, so in the study, like we said, they had 24 hours without food, right? Which in reality, that like 1 day without food doesn't even put a dent in your energy reserves, right? We all, even if you're lean, you have pounds and pounds, thousands and thousands of calories of energy reserve.
Yeah.
You're not close unless, you literally are starving, wasted away. But yeah, so most of us, 1 day is nothing. It's not even going to be anything. So for your metabolism to slow down, it shows like it is even just from that 1 day, it's a precaution that's built in for us.
Yeah, just a self-preservation.
It's also probably why when we say, I'm going to do a diet and naturally cut calories, it seems to be, and this is always my experience in working with people, those first few days are really hard. First day or two.
Yeah, you're
3 days.
Fighting against
then
everything.
Eventually you settle in and it gets easier, right? But yeah, why initially, oh my gosh, we've cut down calories, it's like that's our body kind of ramping, having this little alarm, but the reality is it is going to get easier. You are going to settle in, especially if the further you are from really lean, because you do have more energy reserves, but there is going to be that initial wall that's like, this is bad, right? And so if you can get through that, it gets a lot easier. And they were arguing that there's no logical reason why our bodies would do that. So that would be our logical reason. Well, it does happen, and it's probably just almost like to make us aware, like that we have less energy coming in, and there's unpleasant reactions to that.
Yeah, but it should have been an alarm bell, in our evolution to like, hey, we need more. We don't have enough right now, so that you are maybe a little bit more motivated to go get something, right? Your adrenaline, might go up a little bit to make you more alert so you can go grab stuff.
Yep. So some things to really take away are, for one, it's, what the way we're wired is it's complex.
Very.
And it's just the way it is. It's from years and years of evolution. For different environments than we're in now, which makes it seem even more complex than it really is. And you just have to kind of first accept that. Realize, too, that most of us still fall in, like, moderate, in the middle ground.
Yeah.
And then there are the extremes. Even with that, that's why you want to focus on the principles, right?
Because those are pretty universal.
Mm-hmm. And another kind of big takeaway from all this, too, is that, and this is something we've seen, like cut or dry, some people might get great results with fasting, and others will struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can read the thing and see that some people just swear by it. But you may be one of those people who, like myself, I just don't do well with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's more stressful. Then I'm thinking about food. Then I'm more likely to binge when it is time to eat. I'm jittery and shaky and just not at a better place. Right? Whereas some people who are typically, if you're going to be the slower phenotype, may really benefit from it because, for one, you may need a bigger deficit to actually start to see weight loss, right? So ultimately, it's going to be easier to achieve a bigger deficit eating less often.
Yeah.
Not having as many opportunities to eat, and you don't get those huge adrenaline
Yeah, so you're largely
spikes.
Unbothered by that. And that's another thing. I don't know if we even touched on it. Like it seems from our observation that people that are that fast metabolism tend to respond to just even a slight deficit. Like for you, like just a little deficit and you can start losing. Whereas some people who, it may be the people with the slow phenotype, they need a little bit of a bigger deficit to get that, response to start losing weight.
or with that, and what we've seen with clients is, because the reason that may be that you need a bigger deficit is because when you do go in a deficit, your
expenditure drops.
Your expenditure drops. So if you measure your expenditure, which is, again, super complicated, but one good way to do it is to track your steps.
Yep.
Because that will give you a general good idea of your non-exercise activity, your daily expenditure. So if you say, I'm going to do 10,000 steps a day, so that kind of encompasses all your moving around, and make sure you maintain that while your calories are dropping, you may be able to now offset all the negatives we talked about.
Exactly.
And again, that's a way to fight your genetic phenotype.
Your predisposition.
Right? So now you don't have to go so low in calories because you're keeping your expenditure the same or even boosting it a little.
Yeah.
So that's one strategy, right? And again, so this comes back to the principles we talk about for everyone. Strength train 2 to 4 times a week. Walk every day. And try to have a step count goal maybe. And
keep that consistent no matter where you're at.
Because as you eat less, as we saw, even if you are a fast metabolism, they still had a 4% decline in their expenditure.
So you still need to keep up your, consciously stay on your expenditure.
So right there for most people, I would say that's as far as you really need to go.
Yeah.
Is try and maintain your expenditure, and you'll probably avoid most of these declines we talked about. And again, that doesn't mean hardcore workouts, HIIT workouts, nothing to do with exercise. This is your NEAT, your
just
non-exercise.
moving. That's not any exercise whatsoever.
Very impactful and powerful. So, and then experiment, like we always say, different methods like intermittent fasting or eating more frequently. Find what works for you. And I know people hate seeing that or hearing that because they just want an answer, but
it's not that cut and dry.
Yeah, when you go back, listen to our podcast with Amanda, it's about personalizing it and realizing that's why we don't, we harp on like when people say there's only one way.
But there's not.
That's the problem. There's not, and you're going to run into things that are just feel awful for you, even though your best friend swears by it.
And you have to trust the awful feeling.
Yeah.
That's not for you.
And don't force it. And find an approach that makes it easier.
Yeah. Because if Gary put all of his eggs in the intermittent fasting bucket and just kept trying it but feeling awful, where's he going to get?
And here's the thing. Then say I did it and forced it and was where I wanted it to be, but it would feel so unsustainable. Yeah. And then I would even think, I don't want to do this. This is so bad. And
being healthy is not for me.
Exactly. Whereas, okay, let me just start eating breakfast again. And then you know what? I'll wake up. Oh, I get to eat soon. Look forward to that. Now I'm not pumping adrenaline.
Yeah, you don't get the jitters.
At a 4x rate. And then things still all fall into place. Because we know the principle isn't you're not losing weight because you're fasting. It's because, you manage your total food intake, get in that deficit, yada, yada, yada. So, just find the methods, the setup, the meal timing, the foods that support you achieving the principles of calorie deficit, sufficient protein. Those are the things that you're trying to achieve.
Yep.
Find the setup that works for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, depending on your phenotype, like we said, there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
Now, in today's environment of a surplus,
it's easier to be a fast phenotype.
It's easier. I mean, bottom line, right?
Yeah.
Like, it makes it easier. There's no way around that. So that's how it is now. And if we were in an environment where
food was really scarce,
it would be beneficial to be the slower metabolism, right? Because you're more chill. You're not going to spaz out and go try to find something and then actually not find something, and now you're just closer to death.
Yep. Yeah, so it was way more risky back then to be a fast phenotype because, if you got something, you were good. Yeah. But if you didn't get something, you're going to probably die faster than that slow phenotype.
Yep. And then it helped to have both in the group because if one died, you still have someone alive to keep things going, right? Now today, that's just not.
Yeah, we're not having to worry about that.
We're not having
balance.
to worry about that. So hopefully that all makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was good.
Yeah, we find it fascinating. It's cool to see from when you work with people and you notice trends and things, and then to see stuff kind of back it up.
And we've talked about this for, I don't know, it feels like a few years about just us noticing that it almost seems like there's two types of people when it comes to, losing weight or
well,
anything
we'll
that.
see these people are similar weight or height, but then you assign them a calorie amount, and some people just start losing right away, and some nothing happens, and they got to go way lower.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen people. We've had a 5'4", 140-pound woman who maybe wants to lose the last 10 pounds, be able to just eat 1,900 calories
and lose.
And then we've had a 5 foot, 180-pound woman have to go down to 1,400 calories to see the things move, right? And the biggest takeaway for me is the hormonal fasting stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so now, okay, what type of person may benefit more from an intermittent fasting approach, right? Now that doesn't go to say without. You could then assign that, so say a person probably is a slower phenotype, they would benefit from intermittent fasting, but then say their lifestyle's always around food and they start getting stressed because they have to say no all the time, or maybe they're at home for breakfast and it's hard to skip it.
That might not be ideal.
And then for those reasons, it may not be ideal, even though it may be lean towards ideal from a biological standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all the stuff we're having to juggle is not just biology, but also our social life setup and all those things. So that's why it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, like all this phenotype stuff is a factor. Mm-hmm. It's not the law. It's not the holy grail. It's just this is a factor in who you are.
And the worst thing you can do is go, I'm a slow metabolism. It's going to be harder. I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
Right.
When in reality, really the biggest thing you can do is just keep your daily movement up, and it levels the playing field a whole lot more. And that's not even a super demanding thing for most people.
That's the biggest takeaway, I think, for an individual is, you know what? Let me make sure I'm consistent with my non-exercise activity, with my walking, with my steps.
Just get steps in.
Work that in, and then from there, let me find methods of controlling my nutrition that make it sustainable and doable.
Yeah. And I I wager that the reason, because I get plenty of steps daily and luckily work, the job helps me do that. But like when I go to lose weight, like I lose weight pretty fast, and like it is kind of frustrating for, other people that maybe don't lose it quite as fast. But if I'm getting 20,000 steps every single day without fail, like of course it's going to be easier for me, because as I go down, like it's ramping up, man.
And this is just speculation. I mean, there is some other stuff that is more concrete. I just don't want to quote anything wrongly, but that's also why in general women struggle. It's harder for them to lose weight than men because evolutionarily it makes more sense for women to be more weight stable for childbearing purposes, right?
I think that's a good point.
If they get into fight or flight, stressed out mode from losing weight, having not enough weight, then you're less likely to be able to conceive, right? And then if you are conceived, it's harder to have adequate nutrition for your baby, right? So it's more important for women to have a little more body fat, which they do,
that's
in general,
natural.
and for their weight to be more stable.
Yeah, that's actually another good factor. Again, that's not concrete, but it does make a good bit of sense.
All right. So yeah, hopefully that is interesting to you and makes sense and gives you some takeaway. Which again, we don't. We know it's our common theme, but everything does come back to like the super simple stuff, right?
It really does.
Yeah, don't get overwhelmed, caught up on what you can't control.
Because while we did just go over a lot, it really came down to keep your energy expenditure the same.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
So,
all right. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Let us know. Thanks for listening. We'll be back.
We'll see you next
week.
time. As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.